Hello and welcome to Children's Lives Matter, the new Thriving Women Network series that enlightens, encourages, and empowers parents to imagine, to reimagine, and individualize parenting to make raising emotionally balanced children a reality for everyone. We believe that every child is important and deserves to be loved. For our first time viewers, my name is Vera Thomas, and I am streaming live from Canton, Ohio, with Jessica Sheehan from Oregon. Jessica, what is our theme for this month?
Hi, Vera. So this month, our theme is May being Mental Health Awareness Month. And as you know, since its inception in 1949, Mental Health Awareness Month has been a cornerstone of addressing the challenges faced by millions of Americans living with mental health conditions. The national movement is dedicated to eradicating the stigma, to extending support, fostering public education, and advocating for policies that prioritize the well-being of individuals and families affected by mental illness. Now, last week's episode, we focused on emotional abuse as the final episode of a 3-part series on child abuse that we did, and that contained information to help those outside the family understand how they can help. The episode of Children's Lives Matter this time is the first episode of a 4-part series for mental health awareness, and it's focused on emotional intelligence. In this episode, Vera, we are going to help our viewers learn more than you ever thought you could about emotions and how they drive behavior. So I can't think of many things more important than that. Now, Vera, what is our quote for this week?
This week is to inspire thought. For this week was Dr. Alice Miller, author of The Drama of the Gifted Child. And her quote is, "How do people with unhappy childhoods think about their own experience? They repress the hell out of it." Wow.
So true.
Yes, so true. And emotional intelligence is so critical.
Hey, Psych2Goers! Thank you so much for the ongoing love and support you've given us. Psych2Go's mission is to make psychology and mental health more accessible to everyone, and you help us do that. Now, let's start the video. Have you ever put dry ice in a bottle? As the CO2 turns into gas, the bottle gradually expands with pressure until, with a sudden pop, the bottle explodes. And bottling dry ice is exactly like bottling up your emotions. There's a time limit before the metaphorical bottle explodes. And it can be hard to release the pressure. The first step in properly processing your emotions is to recognize that you're closing yourself off from them. So, here are 6 signs you're bottling up your emotions. 1. You rarely yell or cry, but you can erupt over small issues. Let's say your partner drops a cup and breaks it while washing the dishes, and you suddenly feel your blood boiling with this overwhelming anger. Your outburst over this relatively minor issue can be a sign of deeper, more suppressed troubles in your relationship or personal life. In a study by the University of Texas, Researchers had one group of subjects watch horrifyingly disgusting film scenes while suppressing any reaction or emotion they felt. Afterwards, the first group was significantly more aggressive than the second group of subjects who were allowed to express themselves. The study, published in Social Psychological and Personality Science, shows how bottling up your emotions can actually make them more powerful. 2. You distract yourself whenever you start to feel uneasy. Do you find yourself mindlessly scrolling through Instagram or guilty binge-watching hours of The Good Place? A telltale sign of suppressing your emotions is avoidance. You engage in self-destructive behaviors like drinking or smoking. You try to escape by watching TV, playing video games, or even oversleeping in order to avoid thinking about how you feel. 3. You feel like you're a different person around others than you are by yourself. Bottling up your emotions can create a divide between who you think you are and how others see you. You might feel exhausted, anxious, or jaded in private, but your friends may see you as confident and calm. In fact, you may even be the clown of your friend group. If you avoid expressing yourself, you may feel like you have two separate faces and that no one truly knows you. Perhaps you're not sure yourself who you are. As activist Bryant McGill states, to know yourself is to love yourself and to welcome and love all the emotions that come with you. 4. You often feel uncomfortable around highly emotional people. If you suppress yourself, you might think that crying or screaming is embarrassing or bad, but more subtly, you'll just feel uncomfortable around highly emotional people who visibly express their emotions. You might struggle with how to react or how to offer comfort to them in their time of distress, especially if emotions hold a sort of stigma and pain for you personally. 5. You experience life from a third-person perspective. Maybe you're at the mall with your friends and everyone is laughing and joking around, but you feel as if you're observing the fun rather than fully engaging in it. You feel distant from others. You may also find intimacy difficult and have only a few close friends. By bottling up your emotions, you distance yourself from how you feel. It makes not only anger and sadness harder to express, but also expressing happiness and joy. And 6. You avoid confrontation and never address the cause of your emotions. Perhaps you feel powerless over your own life. You're unable to think deeply about your emotions, nor can you talk to others about how they make you upset. Even if you bottle your emotions, you can still feel angry and sad, but instead of finding the cause of the negativity, you numb yourself to the pain. You fear any sort of confrontation and you avoid your emotions just like you avoid emotional people. Psychologist Perpetua Neo explains that emotions shouldn't be so fear-inducing. They exist for a reason. In fact, she calls them our first intel in a war, because they're often a sign that something is wrong and needs fixing. You can learn to let in your emotions and use them to identify changes that need to be made in your life. So, did you recognize any of these signs in yourself and how you connect with others? If you enjoyed watching this video, give us a thumbs up and share it with someone who might find it helpful too. The studies and references mentioned in this video are in the description. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell icon for more Psych2Go content. And as always, thanks for watching, and we'll...
Wow, Dixie Ann, that was pretty deep, wasn't it? And I don't know about you, but I think I've bottled up emotions over time in various situations.
I think we have. We all have. You know, most of us didn't come from an era where we were taught to practice that. You know, I made a note on that last point. Emotions exist for a reason. They're a first intel in a war because they're a sign that something is wrong and needs fixing. And not until recently, Catherine, like in my recent adult years, that I came to appreciate and acknowledge that when those emotions show up, it's usually prompting us to do some exploration, like, why are you here? What are you here to show me? So we're on a journey.
We sure are, and it reminds me of how, you know, little boys are told not to show emotions, and how vital it is that we do express our emotions, because as you just said, they're signs for something a little deeper. So anyway, let's see what else is on the agenda, Dixie Ann. I'm Dr. Catherine Murray, for those of you who don't know me, and I'm broadcasting live from Los Angeles, and I've got the lovely Dixie Ann Harris with me as well as we do this session. So let's dive a little deeper into this topic, Dixie Ann, and think about the emotional intelligence. We've all heard that term. Our emotions wield significant influence over our actions and choices, a notion underscored by research highlighted in Psychology Today. Emotions serve as the compass guiding our responses to the world around us, shaping the decisions we make. Whether it's the impulse to seek pleasure, avoid pain, or navigate complex social interactions, our emotional landscape plays a pivotal role, as we were just saying. From the subtle nuances of everyday interactions to the weighty decisions that sculpt our lives, our emotional state interweaves with our cognitive processes, often directing the course of our behaviour with a profound and pervasive potency. Having an understanding of your emotional landscape can help you to respond rather than react to your circumstances. And gee, those two words, respond or react.
Yes.
Dixie, please tell us who we're honouring this week.
My pleasure, Catherine. Today we're honoring Joshua Friedman. He is a prominent figure in the realm of emotional intelligence. He is renowned as the co-founder of 6 Seconds, a leading organization dedicated to advancing the understanding and application of emotional intelligence worldwide. In 2000, Friedman chaired the first international conference on the implementation of emotional intelligence in San Francisco. It was called Nexus EQ. Friedman actively works to promote EQ awareness and development on a global scale. He amplifies the impact of emotional intelligence education and initiatives through partnerships, creating synergistic efforts to enhance individuals' EQ skills and create more emotionally intelligent communities and workplaces.
Yeah, and emotional intelligence starts with being emotionally aware, doesn't it? And that means that we're aware of our feelings and we understand the energy behind those feelings.
Right.
And you can choose to respond versus react, as we said before, depending on the circumstance that you find yourself in. But really, Dixie Ann, how many of us were taught to be aware of and understand our feelings?
Mm-hmm.
Most of us saw our parents coping with emotions through escape or suppression. But according to WebMD, repression refers to the tendency to avoid uncomfortable feelings. You unconsciously push painful feelings, thoughts, or memories out of your consciousness. This lets you forget them. And you do this for fear of damaging your positive self-image. These are unprocessed emotions, but they can still affect your actions. In the video that follows, we will learn what emotional repression looks like. Children's Lives Matters is sponsored by the Thriving Women Network, an affiliate of the Thriving Women the Thriving Women University, which is an affiliate of the Thriving Women Network. Bit of a mouthful. If you want to produce a franchise show, TWN provides the media network, training, coaching, and mentoring to produce your own franchise show. For more information, visit the website thrivingwomennetwork.com. And we'll be right back.
Everything I learned about emotional repression, I learned from you. The things you said, the behaviors you modeled. The thing is, I know it's not your fault. You just followed the behaviors your parents showed you. You never learned how to positively express your feelings. So you told me not to cry. You told me to pretend that their words didn't hurt. We don't let them know how we feel, you'd say. As if these people had power over us, as if they cared what we felt. So I held in my feelings, denying how I felt, so you could feel accepted by society.
Everything I learned about emotional repression, I learned from you. You told me to man up. You said real men don't have feelings, but I saw you have feelings. You let them out in a rage when you were drunk. You never did numb the pain. You only numbed your ability to suppress it. In this way, you passed down the generational pattern of escaping your feelings through alcohol. It wasn't your fault. You didn't know any better. Even Grandpa still uses that coping mechanism to escape how he feels. This is the legacy I bear. This is the generational pattern I must break. Everything I learned about emotional repression, I learned from you. I learned to be emotionally absent. Even though I was scared to get my hair cut, you made me sit still and man up. Big boys don't show anyone their fear, you said. You taught me that emotions are to be avoided. When you felt bad, you buried yourself in work, anything to avoid feeling those feelings. Or you would hit the stores, go to the mall. That temporary lift of shopping helped you escape from those nasty feelings. This is the legacy I bear. This is the generational pattern I must break. I refuse to inherit these chains. I refuse to pass down this legacy. I will break free from emotional repression, from numbing, from escaping. I will learn to embrace my feelings, to express them authentically, and to break the cycle for future generations. This is my journey of emotional liberation.
Yeah, I love that emotional liberation. Isn't that powerful?
It is so powerful. Wow.
Well, now Dixie Ann, we've got a session that's actually all about you. So this is a brand new segment in our show, and one that we call Host Hot Seat. And in this segment, we're going to grill. Ooh, that's a tough word, isn't it? We're going to grill one of our hosts on the topic of the day. So, Dixie Ann, you're up this week. And you are a social and emotional learning expert. Can you explain why understanding our emotions is so important for our children, please?
I love that word too. I'm being grilled. So understanding our emotions is an important skill for everyone to master, for you, for myself. But when it comes to our children, it's really vital because, it provides them with a sure footing to walk through their daily lives, Catherine. When we give our children these tools, it leads to self-regulation, to emotional regulation, and understanding emotions allows them to regulate their own emotions effectively. That's essentially what it is. When they can recognize, label their feelings, they're better equipped to manage them in healthy ways. And that improves both self-control and resilience. It also helps them to manage themselves and have better relationships with the others around them. They excel in empathizing. They're able to embrace different perspectives. It helps them to develop self-awareness. And then that skill pours into how they show up in the world, their ability to be assertive, to stand up for themselves and to stand up for their values. It's Mental Health Awareness Month. So I think one of the biggest things is that it helps them to understand their emotions, to handle difficult situations. And it's essential for their mental health and well-being. If they lack emotional awareness, more than likely they tend to struggle with anxiety, with depression, and with other mental health issues. So when we foster that emotional intelligence, we can help them develop coping skills and in the end build emotional resilience.
Totally. And I think your point about the first step being the awareness of the emotions and being able to label the emotions so then you can deal with it, I think is really important.
It's crucial.
But I'm wondering how we could help children to be responsive rather than reactive. Dixie Ann, what are your thoughts?
Well, to me, teaching them to be responsive rather than reactive, really, it's a huge contributing factor to their self-regulation, and self-management. And we see that all across the world, from the little ones to the teens. There's a struggle to do that. And when you teach them or give them tools to master emotional intelligence, it really isn't about controlling emotions. It's more so about controlling our behavior in relation to emotions. Because when we're triggered, the first reaction is usually defensive. That's natural, it's innate. That process of becoming more responsive and taking steps to reflect on the trigger, to control our behavior, to react to those triggers, that takes time to develop, but it starts in the early childhood years. We know that prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain that makes conscious decisions, that helps to override emotional impulses. That's not developed until we're out of our teens. So when we get to that stage, not just because it's fully formed, do we instantly have right responses coming from an individual. It's the process. So like you pointed out, Catherine, when you teach them to name emotions, when you give them awareness, that can shift and control their emotional state. So they're in charge of that. That's where it starts. It empowers them to be more mindful and more intentional and just how they respond to the world.
Mm. And I love that you brought in the development of the brain in what you've just said there, Dixie-Ann, because I think as adults we forget that children's brains are developing, particularly in the first 5 years of life, where 90% of the neural pathways, the deepened neural pathways, are developing. So I'm really pleased that you mentioned that it continues to develop into adulthood. But thinking about childhood, what did you learn about processing emotions when you were a child? Can you remember, or does something come to you around your childhood?
Catherine, I did not learn to process emotions as a child. I was raised in a different culture. I was raised in a culture and an era where that whole adage of children should be seen and not heard. Mm-hmm. Those are the type of statements that were almost proudly affirmed. Yet when you think back to it, we were neither really seen nor heard. We weren't allowed to express ourselves. If you had big emotions, they were potentially an embarrassment to the parents. And so you'd have children being punished for it. If you questioned an adult or you contradicted adults, at that time it could lead to the same. So very early on, I learned to not speak about how I felt unless I was very safe in an environment. And in a lot of these cases, when I reflect on it now, parents back then lacked self-awareness, and on a deeper level, self-love. So the levels of emotional intelligence, I think, that are prevalent in many of us today actually are higher because we were raised without those training wheels, without emotional training wheels. We were pushed right into the world of emotions as adults, and we had to figure it out. We had to figure out how to navigate the world around us, how to find our balance, how to tune in, how to show up, and then how to triumph. So we filled in those gaps intentionally. And I think today many of us are breaking cycles for the younger generation, and we're bringing that healing to each other through forums such as this.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I think we know a lot more these days. And when we look back on our parents' era and their parents before them, and that intergenerational trauma that was sort of talked about earlier, and the emotional connection with that, I think though that parents really just do the best that they can do with the tools that they have and the knowledge that they have at the time. And I think we're evolving. So I agree with what you're saying. We're sort of maybe a better generation, and we might be able to help our children a little more and our grandchildren a little more.
And that's why we do it. And most parents were actually not taught to understand or embrace their feelings, either through their parents or through schools. And in fact, many parents were taught to suppress or ignore their feelings, believing that showing vulnerability or emotions was actually a sign of weakness. Right. This mindset was often passed down through generations, creating a cycle where emotional expression was stigmatized or dismissed. But as our understanding of psychology and emotional intelligence evolved, there's been a shift towards recognizing the importance of emotional awareness and expression, both for us as adults and for teaching these skills to children. Our fabulous producer, Angela Lee, wrote an article for the Los Angeles Tribune magazine titled "The Epic Lies About Emotions You Learned from Your Parents." In this article, she detailed the various emotionally repressive behaviors that many of our parents exhibited. And as we reflect on these behaviors, ways of escaping, suppression, or numbing emotions, it becomes apparent why some from their generation turn to alcohol as a means to avoid confronting difficult feelings.
Yeah, and Angela Lee's perspectives on emotions underscores the distinction between the emotions themselves and the expressions of those emotions, two different things. She suggests that it's not the emotions themselves that are negative, but rather how we express or deal with them that can be detrimental. Angela acknowledges that some emotions may be more challenging to confront than others and may even provoke deep discomfort. However, she also highlights that the biochemical aspect of emotions, noting that their biochemistry typically lasts only about 90 seconds if our minds don't dwell on the circumstances that triggered the emotion. That's interesting.
Very much so. In her children's book series, The Bella Santini Chronicles, that I actually just started with my 2 kids, Angela introduces a technique she terms focused attention, wherein the mind becomes singularly fixated on the sensation of a particular emotion. By engaging in this practice, acknowledging, naming, and permitting the emotions, the mind avoids fixating on external circumstances, and instead it remains sharply attuned to the feeling. Through this deliberate process, the emotion is allowed to flow naturally, leading to its swift dissipation. This method can be employed whenever the mind starts to dwell on circumstances, thereby preventing the descent into a spiral of discomfort. So by utilizing this approach, individuals can actually circumvent the need for the repressive behaviors often adopted by previous generations.
For those of us who are joining us now, we are talking about emotional intelligence as part of Mental Health Awareness Month. Emotions drive many behaviors, and having an understanding of them and how to deal with them is paramount to living a well-balanced life. Let's watch this video to learn more in just a moment, but before we do that, just a reminder that Children's Lives Matter is sponsored by the Thriving Women University, an affiliate of Thriving Women Network. And if you want to produce a franchise show, TWN provides the media network training, coaching, and mentoring to produce your own franchise show. For more information, visit our website, thrivingwomennetwork.com, and we'll be right back after this video.
Emotional intelligence refers to the ability to recognize, interpret, and process emotions in yourself and others. While genetics, upbringing, and environment all play a role, there are steps you can take to develop your emotional intelligence over time. Get to know yourself. Emotionally intelligent people are self-aware. They have a realistic appreciation of their strengths and weaknesses and how they come across to others. Peer feedback is one way of improving your self-awareness and may uncover a few of your emotional blind spots. Learn your triggers. Linked to the notion of self-awareness is knowing how you are likely to respond in particular situations. Think about how you felt the last time you were under pressure. Did these feelings help or hinder you? Recognizing emotions and the source of these emotions can shift your emotional state. Empathize. Seeing things from someone else's perspective will help you understand their values and beliefs. This is important when it comes to motivating and engaging others. Make a conscious effort to get to know your colleagues. Ask open questions and actively listen to what they have to say, rather than simply waiting for your turn to speak. Be on the lookout for body language and other non-verbal signs, as these may tell you more than someone is willing to express out loud. Own your emotions. Part of being emotionally intelligent is about taking responsibility for the way you interact with others. If someone upsets you, pause and reflect on why their actions led you to feel this way, instead of reacting impulsively. Recognize that a conversation is a two-way interaction, and it takes two people to make you angry, sad, or frustrated. Go with your gut. Finally, listen to your body. If your stomach starts doing backflips every time you speak to a senior manager, or your muscles tense up before you go into a meeting, what does this tell you? Counterintuitive as it might seem, emotions can be a valuable source of information when making rational decisions at work. Remember, emotional intelligence isn't about suppressing emotions. It's about learning how to recognize, process, and channel them in a way that benefits you and your team. Enhancing your emotional intelligence requires effort, but it can be achieved with sustained practice.
Welcome back to Children's Lives Matter. I'm Jessica Sheehan, and I'm here with one of my co-hosts, Vera Thomas. And we are diving into emotional intelligence as our topic. So emotional repression has had a huge impact and effect on society. When someone seeks to suppress, numb, or escape the way that they feel, they usually target that emotion as a negative one. But emotions are information, and they're giving us insights into whether our circumstances are working for us or not. So, Vera, let's dive into emotional intelligence so that our viewers can understand its importance a little further. Oh, Vera, we can't hear you.
Come on. Okay.
There we go.
All right. Here we go.
Here we go.
Okay. Emotional intelligence, also known as EI or EQ, is important for doing well in life. EQ is about understanding and processing your feelings and understanding those of others. Imagine being really good at sensing how someone else feels and knowing what to do about it. That's EQ.
Mhm.
In practical terms, EQ manifests in various ways. It allows individuals to easily navigate social interactions, fostering stronger connections and more meaningful relationships. In a professional context, EQ enables better collaboration, conflict resolution, and leadership skills. Moreover, individuals with a high EQ are often adept at making sound decisions. This is
Mhm.
so important, so important. And in looking at that video and how it talked about getting feedback from your coworkers and things. And I remember doing that because I noticed that their attitudes and behaviors had changed after about 6 years of working together. And so I asked, why the change? And awareness precedes change. And so sometimes we don't see how we are coming across with other people or how our emotions are impacting others. And so that feedback is really important.
Yes, and we get feedback from other people just the way that our emotions are giving us feedback about ourselves. So
Yes.
that's a great point. And surprisingly, some people don't know that EQ is even more important than IQ. So everyone's familiar with IQ. That means how smart you are in traditional ways. But studies show that EQ might be responsible for up to 80% of our success in life, while IQ only counts for 20%. And I think that speaks to the fact that we are social beings and we are social animals and we are interacting with one another, and life is an emotional contact sport.
Absolutely. And that's why many advocates want to teach emotional intelligence in elementary school. Key by introducing children to concepts related to emotions, empathy, and interpersonal skills for a young age. Educators aim to equip them with essential tools for navigating the complexities of human interaction and succeeding in both personal and professional spheres later in life. This is so important. And so imagine learning about EQ alongside of math and science. It could make all the difference in how we all get along and succeed. A game changer.
Yes, so true, Vera. And becoming aware of your emotional landscape is the beginning of emotional intelligence. we all carry these emotional triggers. We respond to our circumstances based on those triggers. But the triggers are not always part of our awareness, and they might be buried in our subconscious mind. So you can start becoming emotionally intelligent by noticing what those behaviors are and what causes you to be triggered. And then you can think back about the first time in your life where you felt that way. And the first time you experienced that feeling is probably the origin of that emotional trigger. So during our commercial break, we're going to learn more about emotional triggers, Vera. Before we do that, though, we want to remind you all that Children's Lives Matter is sponsored by Thriving Women University, an affiliate of the Thriving Women TV network. If you want to produce a franchise show, TWN provides the media network training, the coaching, and mentoring to produce your franchise show. For more information, you can visit our website at thrivingwomennetwork.com, and we'll be right back.
How to identify potential triggers and stressors. Stress is a normal part of everyone's life, and in our busy world, feelings of stress can originate from many different areas. If we worry about and fret over our stress, it can become harmful. But if we recognize it and manage, it can actually help us perform and improve. One essential tool to help you manage stress involves identifying the circumstances that lead you to feel this way. These circumstances are your stressors or triggers. By developing awareness in this area, you can learn to recognize your stressors, prepare for your stressors, and mindfully respond to your stressors with actions that reduce their impact. To identify your stressors, you need to start paying attention. Instead of moving through life mindlessly, take notice of what is happening around you and how you feel in response to what is happening. One of the most effective ways to do this is to keep a log. In this log, you will record 2 sets of information. The first is a list of all the events that occurred in the course of your day. The second is a list of corresponding feelings you had in response to each event. Information is power. The more you pay attention and the more information you gather, the more you will notice patterns between situations in your life and stress levels. The more you notice, the more equipped you will be to take action, reduce stress, and improve your quality of life.
Okay, so that was a good summary of emotional triggers. And these are really like those buttons that set off strong feelings inside us. And these triggers often stem from things that happened when we were kids. So maybe something happened that made us feel upset, or maybe it was scared, but we didn't know how to talk about it or deal with those emotions. So when something reminds us of those past experiences, even if it's something small, it can bring back all those feelings in a rush. And for example, if someone yells at us in a way that reminds us of how our parents used to yell when we were little, it might make us feel really upset or defensive in that moment, even if the situation isn't exactly the same. So it could be maybe even in a work situation. But understanding these emotional triggers is important because it helps us to recognize, why do we react the way that we do in situations? And then once we know what triggers us and looking in that introspection, we can work on managing our reactions better. And that's growth. So maybe we find even healthier ways to deal with those feelings or to talk to someone about them if we need to. But by understanding our emotional triggers, we can start to take control of our reactions and live happier, more balanced lives. And we don't have to go to those maladaptive coping behaviors that some people will use. But it's like shining a light on the things that bother us so we can learn to navigate them more smoothly rather than avoiding them or trying to ignore them. Vera?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And fortunately, emotional intelligence can be taught by those who don't have these innate skills. Universities such as Cornell and Harvard offer courses. You can search for EQ courses in your area and even search YouTube for EQ. For those interested in delving deeper into EQ, Joshua Freeman's organization, 6 Seconds, offers EQ certification. that is people don't understand EQ, like you said, it's far more important than IQ, in my opinion, because if you don't have your emotions intact, if you don't understand your emotions, then I am sure that causes a lot of the mental stress that often we feel.
Absolutely. And we're going to transition now to our actionable advice section of the show. And so right now I'm going to be joined by my co-host, Dr. Catherine Murray. Hi, Kathy. Welcome back.
Hi, Jessica. Nice to be in this segment with you.
Yes. And so here again, we are presenting Children's Lives Matter, and we are diving into emotional intelligence for anyone who is just now joining us. We appreciate you being here, however and wherever you're watching. And if you're watching the show, you know that May is Mental Health Awareness Month. And today we're here to equip parents and caregivers and educators with the knowledge that they need to teach their children about emotions. Our aim is to empower families to have open conversations about ensuring the well-being of their children. It's never too late to start putting these things into your parenting practices and having these conversations. And we want to include that understanding of the importance of emotional expression. So welcome all officially to the actionable advice portion of the show. Kathy?
And you know, we know that we opened the show with a discussion of repressed emotions. And so many of us have learnt this behaviour from our parents, who were taught not to show their emotions or how to effectively deal with their emotions. Emotional intelligence is crucial for navigating the complexities of life, relationships, and society. When people lack the tools to understand and manage their emotions, it often leads to harmful behaviours toward themselves and others. Teaching effective emotional coping mechanisms can foster healthier individuals and communities. So then we reduce the cycle of hurt and harm. It's about fostering empathy, self-awareness, and constructive ways of dealing with difficult feelings.
Absolutely. And it's important to understand that our emotions, like feeling sad, angry, scared, they're not good or bad by themselves. They're like signals that tell us how we're doing and what's going on around us. This is just information. So we can think of them as difficult feelings instead of negative feelings, because they teach us important stuff about ourselves and where we're at and how we're doing. So for example, if you're feeling upset, it might mean that something's not quite right in your world. Maybe a friend said something that hurt your feelings. Maybe you're stressed out about a test or something that's coming up. But these things are like little alarms that are telling us to pay attention. The more we do this, the better we'll get at it and the easier it becomes. But we can deal with these feelings, and dealing with them is what really matters. So we don't want to push them down or ignore them, thinking that's the best way to handle it. It's going to come out somehow. So it can really make things worse in the long run if we try to repress. It's trying to stuff a beach ball underwater. Have you ever tried to do that?
Yeah, pretty difficult.
It might be good to try and strengthen your core, folks, but it's not going to work, okay? So it's going to pop back up, and it may be even stronger than before. It may come out at a time that is very inconvenient. So on the other hand, expressing our feelings in a healthy way can have positive effects. And talking to someone we trust, a friend, a family member, a counselor, can help us to understand what it is we're feeling, get to that root and why. And then it can make us feel better to know that we're not alone.
Absolutely. And, you know, all good points, Jessica. Understanding that emotions are that emotions are really just information gathering, and is really important. For our viewers, I'm very excited now to introduce our guest, Natalie Ledwell, creator of Mind Movies and one of the founders of the FeelWise app, a tool that provides mental health support for kids. And I'm particularly excited because Natalie is another Australian, and it's lovely to have another Australian accent on the show, Natalie. So thanks for coming on and you know, helping me be not the minority so much.
Thank you. And I'm so happy to be here. And wow, I've been learning a lot.
Yeah, it's been an action-packed and very full episode, like all our episodes are, so that there's a lot of information. But we really want to ask you a few things, Natalie, given that you're our special guest today. And we know that you've been very successful with Mind Movies. In fact, I've been following your progress with Mind Movies for a number of years. But you've now gone away from that a little bit. What led you away from Mind Movies to start this new app that you've developed, the FeelWise app?
Yeah. Well, before the pandemic, when the world was pretty positive and happy, well, my world on Facebook anyway, I remember clicking on a link and reading an article, a news article about a 10-year-old girl who had taken her own life because she was bullied at school. And it broke my heart. And then when I started to pull at that thread and investigate what was happening, the suicide rate, the self-harming rate, the mental anguish that children are feeling right now, and of course it's been just exaggerated after the pandemic. We're in another pandemic of mental health challenges. And so I'm like, I can't sit by and not do something about it.
Yeah, well, I'm so glad that you're not sitting by and that you have taken a proactive role, which is so needed and so valuable with what you're doing. But I just want to ask you a question. Did your school or parents teach you how to deal with emotions? And did you get any main lessons from your parents?
No, I grew up in a country town and I'm one of 8 kids. So I was of the generation where if you fell off your bike and broke your leg, your mum would just lick it, put a Band-Aid on and go, off you go, you'll be right. So there was a lot of repression. There was, we weren't allowed to feel our emotions. So that was that era where you just had to be tough. And I think Australians are kind of tough anyway, but it doesn't serve us by any means, because as we were saying before, if you push those emotions down, not only are they stored somewhere in your body and can like manifest as dis-ease, but they're going to come out some way. And if you've been repressing them, it's not going to be in a healthy way.
Totally.
And so, Natalie, tell us how the FeelWise app can help kids with their emotions. Take us through that.
So everything that we've talked about or that you've shown videos about on this show so far, the app is going to be able to help you to do. So, we talk about repressing our emotions, so we don't really know what it is that we're feeling. So when you go into the FeelWise app, the first thing you do is check in. And through our AI voice analysis technology, we can actually measure what emotional frequency you're feeling in that moment, even if you're not consciously aware of it. So we give you a little report and then we give you some suggestions on what you can do to move that energy. We even have features like, visualization and meditation and mind movies and a whole bunch of different things. But I think what I love most about the app is that when people join the app, they can either join with a buddy or they can join with a family and friend team of up to 6 people. So now you've got a support group where you can actually open up conversations about your emotions in a way that's going to help you to identify what they are, and then have healthy tools and things that you can do to be able to shift it. I think it completely, I think if you're watching this show and you go, okay, all of this sounds great, but where do I even start? Something like the FeelWise app will give you some specific steps on exactly how to do that, how to model those conversations, and how to be able to shift your energy whenever you want to.
Wow. Okay. So that's a really useful tool. It sounds like there are a lot of different pieces of that would be wonderful for people who want to be more self-aware and to practice and to have that support group. And Natalie, tell us, this episode is about diving deep into emotional intelligence. And how did you personally step into this field?
I have been teaching personal development for 16 years. And what I have known to be true over that 16 years, and I've mainly been working with adults, is that even though we can sit down and dream up this amazing life for ourselves and, consciously go, I want to be wealthy and be in a loving relationship and be very healthy, what normally stops us from creating that life is our old patterns, is our own programs, those old thoughts that we have in our mind that we adopted when we were kids because of our environment or what we were told and how we saw ourselves compared to other people. So then our whole life is now through that lens. So if we were told that we weren't intelligent or that we weren't pretty or that we'll never amount to anything, then that's the lens that we lived our life through. And so having to uncover what that is for adults and going through that process is a challenge for most adults. So for me, it's like, well, why don't we start talking to kids right now so that they can build a strong sense of self, that they have a positive self-image, that they have their personal standards, they know who they are, what their values are, how they want the world to see them, so that they can have a healthy mindset from the beginning rather than all the way down the track 30, 40, 50 years later trying to undo all of the damage that was done when we were younger.
Yeah, we're on the same page there, Natalie. I believe that we need to start young too and support children to be all that they can be as productive adults as they get older. So, and sometimes I think the children can then show the adults how to do things a little more openly, perhaps. Yeah. And you mentioned before, Natalie, about the young 10-year-old girl, which, like you, broke my heart too, who committed suicide because of the bullying. If your app was available then, how could your app have helped her in that situation?
Well, for starters, if her parents are also involved in the app as well, when she is struggling and they can see that she's struggling, we have like a whole library of lessons in there. And one of them is particularly about for parents knowing how to approach the conversation about emotions with their kids. Mm-hmm. You know, most kids, they're shut down. They don't want to talk about it, or they're feeling emotions that they don't even have words to describe. So within the app, not only do parents know how to open those conversations, how to broach that, but then they also have at their disposal all these different tools and activities that they can do with their children to help them to shift their emotions. So, you know, it's like an all-encompassing guide that supports the entire family.
That's a great combination that you're really supporting the whole family, not just individuals, and it gives them, I guess, a starting place for conversations so that they can be more open and recognize and label the emotion that they're feeling. Because I think once you label it, then you can deal with it.
Absolutely. And also, like we were saying before, emotions aren't right or wrong. And they're always an indication of something that we want to look at. So, you know, not helping children not to feel guilty about feeling sad or feeling down, but also giving them the ability to go, well, let's do something together as a family, or why don't you try doing something like this that's going to help you to feel better, I think is really important when it comes to managing the emotional intelligence and emotional regulation of children.
Yeah, totally agree with you. You've told us a little bit about your journey with Mind Movies and now your Feel Well app. But when we look forward, we're looking at your vision. What is your vision for the future and how can we support you?
My vision for the future is that this next generation have in their hands and at their disposal all the information and tools and technology that they need to be able to navigate the world in a very grounded, a very emotionally intelligent way, so that they can live a life of fulfillment and joy. You know, there are so many pressures on our children and this next generation right now, and they're finding it very difficult to cope. So what I see is that they all have access to the information and tools they need to live a loving and happy lifestyle.
That sounds like a beautiful vision to me. And Natalie, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for joining us today. Your expertise on this subject is really appreciated, and thank you for adding to our conversation today.
Thank you,
Natalie.
very
much.
And as a reminder, everyone, Children's Lives Matter is sponsored by Thriving Women University, an affiliate of the Thriving Women Network. If you want to produce a franchise show, TWN provides the media network training, coaching and mentoring to produce your franchise show. For more information, visit the website thrivingwomennetwork.com, and we'll be back after this.
Hey everybody, this video is about positive and negative emotions. Sometimes you may hear psychologists talk about something being a positive emotion or a negative emotion. For example, positive emotions might include things like joy, gratitude, and hope. Negative emotions might be something like shame, guilt, or embarrassment. And it's important that you know that when we talk about positive and negative, what we're talking about is the experience of the emotion, the valence of the emotion, not its function. Right? So emotions tend to serve a purpose, and the purpose is to help guide our behavior. Right? And there may be times when it is good to experience negative emotions. For example, you may feel guilt when you have wronged someone, but that is a good thing because it can help you recognize that you've done wrong and help you rectify the social damage. Maybe it could be bad, likewise, to feel positive emotions sometimes. There might be wrong contexts for laughing at churches, at a funeral. So in this case, it's really about making sure that the emotion you experience is appropriate given the situation. Where it gets complicated is when you experience an inappropriate emotion for the context. If it interferes with your life functioning in some way, then this might even be considered a disorder. For example, if you get stressed or frightened when you're not actually in danger, such as in the case of post-traumatic stress disorder, this can be an incredibly disruptive disease. So to sum up, emotions may be pleasant or they may be unpleasant, but in and of themselves aren't good or bad. So with some training, you can learn to recognize that emotions are really just feelings. They are not who you are. Your anxiety doesn't have to control you. It's a physiological response that your body is having, and it's going to pass.
Well, welcome back to Children's Lives Matter. If you're just tuning in, today's show is focusing on how emotional intelligence can help everyone to thrive. Vera, what are your thoughts on emotional intelligence?
I have a lot of thoughts that time will not permit me to share. But but I will say, when you consider that 64% of adults who have mental or emotional issues, they stem from their childhood. And so understanding that and the fact that the second cause of death for 6-year-olds to 34-year-olds is suicide, emotional intelligence is absolutely critical. And I mean, my own experience, I understand how I suppressed and had a lot of stomach problems because one of the things that Dr. Ledwell said was, it becomes a dis-ease when you are not focusing in on and identifying your own emotional triggers and or how you relate, react, and respond where emotions are concerned. And starting with kids, her app is invaluable and absolutely necessary. All right, I'm going to shut up because I can go on and on and on.
I feel you. Emotions play such a big role in how we make choices every day. I mean, think about it. When you're happy, you're more likely to say yes to things and to take risks. But when you're feeling scared or anxious, you might actually play it safe and avoid certain situations. So our emotions are like little guides that influences the decisions that we make. They help us decide what feels right or wrong in different situations. And for example, if you're excited about a new opportunity, that excitement might push you to go for it, even if it's a little bit scary at first. And if you're really angry, you might make decisions that you wouldn't normally make because that anger is clouding your judgment.
Yes. Oh my God. I could speak on that. We want our viewers to know that it's important to understand your emotions, how you handle them, and what sets you off. This awareness helps you to respond in a conscious way rather than just being reactive. Let's watch this last clip for the benefits of being emotionally intelligent. Now, Children's Lives Matter is sponsored by Thriving Women University, an affiliate of the Thriving Women Network. If you want to produce a franchise show. TWN provides the media network, training, coaching, and mentoring to produce your own franchise show. For more information, visit our website at www.thrivingwomennetwork.com. We'll be right back. We will be right back. It must be okay. Something must be happening. Well, we want to thank our Prime viewers from around the world and for supporting today's mission of enlightening, encouraging, and empowering parents to have a conversation with their children about how to embrace people with that may be suffering from emotional intelligence. You can support us by joining our Facebook group, Thriving Women TV, and telling a friend. You can watch recent episodes on demand at our Facebook page or the E360 TV or our website at www.thrivingwomennetwork.com.
Children's Lives Matter is sponsored by Thriving Women University, an affiliate of the Thriving Women Network. If you want to produce a franchise show, TWN provides the media, network training, coaching, and mentoring to produce your franchise show. For more information, visit our website. And you might want to tune into our other show, Every Child Can Learn, which is on Wednesdays at 2 Eastern Time. I'm Dixie Ann Harris Gordon.
And I'm Vera Thomas. See you next week.